Hi, everybody. Welcome to Sentinel Sports Extra, Cleveland Guardians weekly report. No analytics here. Got a little late start, maybe a minute late, because I muted the microphone right before we came on. And got that fixed now. We got a lot of stuff to talk about today. We're going to review last week, which started nice against the Orioles. And then kind of fell apart in Kansas City. But we have some other things to talk about, unfortunately, other than the series last week. We'll get to that first. I want to review the series first. Okay, let's review last week against the Orioles. The team record. The Guardians are 52-53 heading into action tonight with 57 games left. They're 8 games behind the Tigers. Losing yesterday was not a good. That was bad. They look like they didn't give a crap yesterday. They look like they didn't show up. These are professionals. You show up. Then inning, and then you don't score. You score 1 run the rest of the game. I knew after really the top half of the first, but definitely after the first inning ended after Kansas City hit, and they were up 2-0. I knew that game was over. I tweeted, "This game is over." You could just see that the Guardians didn't care about yesterday's game. It was hot. It was their third game in 24 hours. Oh, woe is me. Hey, guess what? It was hot for the Royals, and it was their third game in 24 hours. I didn't hear the press conference with Kansas City's manager. But the whining and excusing of even that series went south in game 1 of the doubleheader. When they blew that, should have won that game, but didn't win that game. Didn't win it, and so that was bad. What we got is they against the Orioles. They were 3-1, 22-4, outscored them 22-14. And then 1-2 against the Royals. They were 4-3 for the week. I think I predicted them to be 5-2 for the week. But so they weren't. They were 4-3. They needed a better week than that. They needed 5-2. So I'm not. That was not good. They needed a 5-2 week. They got a 4-3 week, and I blame that on Stephen Vogt again. But so we have the upcoming week coming with the Rockies and the Twins. The Rockies are the worst team in baseball. They're 27-78, but they are 5-5 in their last 10 games. And they are 33.5 games out of first place and 29.5 out of a wild card spot. So they're pretty much eliminated. 5-5 in their last 10 though. So they played a little better. They are a -268 runs scored, runs allowed. So that's not good. I'm sure it'll be glossed over by both broadcasters on TV and on the radio because they work for the Guardians, but I'm sure it'll be glossed over, but it's not going to be glossed over here. the glaring and terribly disgusting trade of Tyler Freeman for Nolan Jones. You know, they traded for Nolan Jones supposedly because they thought they needed another power hitter. Well, yeah, they did need another power hitter, but Nolan Jones is not that guy. Like, are you even kidding me? Through 105 games, 105 team games, Nolan Jones has 3 home. Boy, that's a power hitter, isn't it? If you had John Kenzie Noel up here, at least double, triple that. I would venture to say, playing every day, he has quadruple the 3 home runs. But they traded for Nolan Jones, Stephen Vogt's adopted son. And now Nolan has another adopted brother, and his name is Matt Festa. So this is going to show. I hope, I want the Guardians to win the series with the Rockies. I hope they sweep them. They should sweep them. But I hope in the series, Tyler Freeman plays every day. I hope he gets 12 at bats in the series, and I hope he goes 12 and a home run. At least one. And here's the hell. And it was a mistake. It was a huge mistake. Huge mistake. That was the worst trade of the offseason. It really was the worst trade of the offseason. You can't blame the was going to gamble or whatever he did. I'm not sure what he did, but they didn't know that. The Slade Ciccone, Josh Naylor trade's turning out to be a great trade. Arizona's already traded Naylor to Seattle. So that was a good trade for the Guardians. But this Tyler Freeman, Nolan Jones trade, I'm going to say it again. I've said it other times over and over on this show, and I'm going to say it again. Reportedly, the day that trade happened, at 10 o'clock in the morning, Stephen Vogt told Will Brennan that he made the team. He was coming north with the team. And then 4 hours later, they had to call Will Brennan in and tell him, you're going to Columbus because we traded Tyler Freeman to the Rockies for Nolan Jones. What a terrible trade. What a locker room altering trade. Will Brennan, popular teammate. Tyler Freeman, very popular teammate. Hey, let's get rid of them both. Let's send one to the AAA. Let's trade the other one out of the organization to the worst team in baseball for a guy who, he's just there. He's just there. Look, I interviewed Nolan Jones when he was in the minor leagues. There's nothing special about Nolan Jones. I didn't see anything special from him as an athlete, as a baseball player. I really didn't. And a boring guy. He used all the cliches. He just, come on, Nolan Jones. You're going to bring that boring guy back into the locker room after you traded him 2 years ago? That was the biggest mistake they made this offseason. It really was. Also, I think, as much as I hate to say it because I really love Carlos Santana, I think signing Santana was a mistake too. Because after they traded Josh Naylor, this is what had to happen and should have happened. John Kenzie Noel, every single day. Right-handed pitcher or left-handed pitcher. He's in right field. Kyle Manzardo, every single day. first base. Jonathan Rodriguez could have been the DH until David Fry came back, because they're obsessed with David Fry too. He had a half of a good year, and now they act like he's Babe Ruth or something, and they make excuses for him. Oh, there's always an excuse for him too. There's more excuses in this organization right now. Crap, they're starting. I'm really talking. I'm not lying. They're really starting to sound like the Browns. It's really annoying. It's really annoying. They think the rest of us are stupid or something. So, and then after the Rockies, a division series. You got the Twins coming in Friday, Saturday, Sunday. The Twins are 55-50. They're 10 games back in the division, and they're 5.5 back in the wild card. So if you don't play well, you fall behind them, and it's over. Okay, so and they're 3-7 in their last 10 games, so they haven't been playing great. Whenever they have to play a team over 500, they're not good. Minnesota, they haven't been for the last couple of years. But they feasted on the White Sox last year. That's why they stayed in it for a while. They're a -19 run differential. The Guardians hold a 4-2 season series lead over them. So there's 7 games left. The Guardians could win 3. They take the season series again. But now let's get to the elephant in the room here. The news that came down a couple hours ago, just about 2 hours ago, that Emmanuel Clase has now been put on the same list. The same list as Louis Ortiz. He non-disciplinary paid leave. Same list as Louis Ortiz, and amid the gambling investigation. So, okay, people are going to say these are grown men. You can't tell grown men what to do. All right, well, you know what? Especially you can't tell grown men what to do when you have no control of the locker room. We've seen it already. Stephen Vogt makes more excuses for these guys. Stephen Vogt is soft. And guys can pick up on that. And some guys will take advantage of that. And here we have a case that Emmanuel Clase, who knows? Is he guilty? I don't know. He was already suspended 80 games for steroids in 2020. So that doesn't look good for him. And now this. So the Guardians are now without the best closer in baseball. And I know you can say, crap, he hasn't had as good a year as last year. Well, yeah, that's true. But who knows? Is he not having as good a year as last year? Because I don't know. I think that. But think of it this way. May have his last game in the major leagues. He may have pitched his last game ever in Major League Baseball. Unbelievable how this could turn like this. Unbelievable. So who knows what will happen? But my thing is, there is no control in that locker room. The inmates are running the asylum, as the old saying goes. I'll never forget a story like that. I was covering a Browns game years ago, and at halftime, the Browns were beating the Ravens. And I said to Coach Sam Rutigliano, talk about a nice person. Oh my God. He makes you act like you're his best friend. He makes you feel like that. And I said to him, Coach Sam, they might win this game. And he laughed, put his hand on my shoulder, and he said, no, Tim, the inmates are running the asylum. They won't win this game. And he was right. They lost the game. So I feel like the inmates are running the asylum here in Cleveland right now in the dugout. You know, I don't think Stephen Vogt, I don't think he knows what he's doing. And I think that Craig Albernaze has way too much say in decisions. I really feel like he does. Look at that guy in there. Look at that guy in there. I can't stand looking at that guy. I had personal interaction with him, and I can't stand the man. And I think he's one of those, I'm the smartest guy in the room, and I'm a tough guy too. I'm about 5'3", but I'm a tough guy too. And I think they're a bad combination. Look, Craig Albernaze was part of that Gabe Kapler coaching staff in San Francisco who tried this platooning. How well did that go? It didn't. The whole staff got fired. It was a disaster. It was a disaster. They have destroyed John Kenzie Noel. This coaching staff has destroyed John Kenzie Noel. They've destroyed him. They have. I'm not sure we'll see him again. They have destroyed him. Absolutely destroyed him. It's a terrible coaching staff. Aside from the pitching guys, Brad Goldberg, Carl Willis, those guys. I mean, I don't know what to say about Grant Fink. This is his first year as a hitting coach. I knew Grant when he played for Lake County. Really nice guy. Treated the kid fans amazing at Lake County. He's a really nice person. But this is the big leagues, and the hitting has not improved. So I don't know, I don't know. I mean, if they make changes, does Carl Willis survive this time? Or will he go somewhere else? Or will he retire? I don't know. But I honestly think this coaching staff needs to go. They have no control of that locker room, I don't think. They kind of do because they know that he'll make excuses for them no matter what. So the players probably like that, but the players also know they can do whatever the hell they want too. So now we got the best closer in baseball suspended. We have a starting pitcher suspended who was actually not having a terrible year. He really wasn't. He was getting better. So this is all under Stephen Vogt's watch. Anyone who says Stephen Vogt is not responsible for this, he is responsible for this. The head man is responsible, and he is the field manager. That's his locker room. That's his locker room, and it's out of control, obviously. When guys are getting suspended by the league, his locker room is out of control. If this kind of crap was happening in the Browns locker room, everybody would be calling for Kevin Stefanski's head. Everybody. I don't care if Stephen Vogt won Manager of the Year last year. I don't care. Last year is last year. This year is this year. Okay? So he was great last year, but he's terrible this year. And I think that he should be fired. He should be fired. He is responsible for that locker room, and that locker room is obviously out of control at this point. So he should be fired. I'm sorry. Fire him. Fire Stephen Vogt right now. You have to make a statement to these players. We're not going to allow this crap in our organization. Don't become the Browns. Don't become a circus. This is a scandal, people. This is not a joke. This is not an isolated incident. This is obviously a scandal. And they're going to come down hard on the Indians or the Guardians. You know they are. They don't give a crap about small market teams. They'll make an example of them. they'll probably give the team punishment that they should have given the Astros. Don't be surprised. Don't be surprised. I think you have to end this right now. You got to get rid of Stephen Vogt, and you got to get rid of associate manager Craig Albanese. You've got to get rid of them. They got to go. Bring I don't know, you make Sandy Alomar the interim manager, I don't know. Bring Greg DeCenzo up from Columbus. Let him be the interim manager for the rest of the year. See how things go. He knows most of the guys on this roster. You know, they played for him in the minor league system. You know, I just think that Stephen Vogt has to go. Stephen Vogt has to take the fall for not having control of his locker room and his players. Basically, if it's true, if they end up being found guilty by the investigators, Stephen Vogt was in charge, was the manager when his players were fixing games. Basically, they're fixing games by throwing pitches out of the strike zone. Stephen Vogt's the manager. Stephen Vogt needs to take the fall for this too. If he's going to take credit when the players do something right, he needs to be held accountable when the players do this kind of crap. So I think Stephen Vogt has to go. I wasn't happy with Stephen Vogt before this, but this is the final nail in the coffin, if you ask me. You can't have a manager who doesn't have control and his players are doing whatever they want. And they're fixing games, basically. If that's what it ends up, if that's not the case, if they end up being cleared, then I'll come on here and I'll say, great. I'm glad they didn't do anything wrong. But right now, it does not look good. Emmanuel Clase, the best closer in baseball, may never pitch another game. Think of that. Let that sink in for a minute. Not good. And Stephen Vogt was in charge of the team when this happened. He was. So he's got to take the fall for this. I think he's got to take the fall for this. I think Stephen Vogt has to be removed as manager. If they are found guilty of this, Stephen Vogt has to go also. He has to. No excuse. Oh, I had no idea. No, buddy, you know what? What's going on here? You know what the catcher's calling. What's going on here? You can't see something weird's going on? Well, you probably should be the manager then. I was so happy when they hired Stephen Vogt. I thought it was a great hire. I think it's not a good hire now. We've had time to see him now. 267 games. I don't think he's a great manager. I don't think so. So, and with this scandal now, I think he's got to go. But that's. I just think that's what has to happen here. I think Stephen Vogt has to take the fall for this thing because those guys did this under his watch. And Stephen Vogt, he should be fired. He should be fired as soon as, if it comes out that they're guilty, I think the Guardians have to fire Stephen Vogt that day. And Craig Albanese that day. Go on, get out of here. You're no longer the manager in this organization. And they'll be lucky if they get other jobs. If people want to hold other people accountable, they need to go. They have to go. But one more thing before we go, and I guess it's Guardians related because it's Major League Baseball related. But I've been a big Bryce Harper fan. Okay. When he came up, I thought he was a little arrogant. I kind of, I wasn't sure about him, if he really cared about the game. And then I saw the Nationals were playing the Red Sox, and he had done a lot of research and history, knew a lot about the Red Sox organization and the guys who had played at Fenway Park. And so it made me a fan because I love people who love baseball history. But now he kind of pissed me off. Look, I can't stand Rob Manfred. I think he's a terrible commissioner. But the one thing baseball does need is a salary cap. Okay, it needs a salary cap. And Bryce Harper basically telling him to get the F out of the locker room if he's going to talk about a salary cap is bullshit. Basketball and football and hockey, they all have caps. Those leagues are thriving. Guys are getting paid higher than ever in all three of those leagues. But baseball doesn't want a salary cap. The players' union doesn't, because they are just pure greedy. Basketball players, football players, hockey players, they came to agreements because they cared about the sport. Baseball players have shown over and over again for the last 45 years that they don't care about the sport. They care only about making money. And Bryce Harper showed that today, or whenever this happened. Reportedly, this happened. So, to save the sport of baseball and Major League Baseball, there needs to be a salary cap. But the players are going to oppose it because they just want to keep making more and more money. But there's proof through hockey, through football, through the NBA, that the superstars are going to still get paid, and the other guys are going to get paid even more. Especially if there's a salary floor. But baseball's always screwed up. Baseball has been their own worst enemy for probably the last 30 years. 30, 35 years. Baseball's been their own worst enemy. Maybe since 1981, since that strike. They've been their own worst enemy. They don't know how to market themselves. They don't know what's good for the game. And Bryce Harper, today, he showed what I have known for decades, that the players are selfish. They don't really care about the fans. They don't. As a whole, they do not care about the fans. They can lie and say they do. They can try to say all the right things, but they don't care. They don't really care about the fans. They care about making money. Making money. Oh, I have to support my family. Jesus Christ! How much money do you need to support your family? So, I'm now jumping off the Bryce Harper bandwagon. I will no longer root for Bryce Harper. And I don't like Rob Manfred, but the money thing is ridiculous. So that's it for this week. I'm going to make my prediction for the Guardians for this week. Last week I said they'd go 5-2. They did not. They went 4-3. So it was 6 games. I'm going to say 4-2. I'm going to say 4-2. They should go 5-1, but I'm going to say 4-2. They'll lose one to the Rockies. They shouldn't, and they'll lose one to the Twins. So that's what I think will happen. I think they'll take both series, but they'll lose a game in each series too. So until next Monday, I hope everybody has a good week, and go Guardians.